on the website, with some information on the website. It's something that in Minneapolis initiated this process, and St. Paul thought that this was good, and they're now part of the project. Other municipalities can join in, and that would be the goal. Some of the things that are going to be able to be tracked on this that aren't tracked now is how you are tying participation to payroll. So it becomes much more difficult for a contractor then to kind of fudge the books, because you are tying the participation to what's happening with the payroll, and that's happening, you know, through this software. There's another way too, where there will be automatic verification of all the subcontractor activity. Again, kind of one of these critical pieces that sometimes flies under the radar, and unless you're specifically making phone calls to say, okay, you told us you had this subcontractor and that subcontractor and that subcontractor that are going to help you meet your goals, this women-owned business or, you know, black-owned business or whatever it may be, and then we find out later you never even called them. You know, this is to address that kind of thing, or to address the fact where someone has a contract maybe for a short time and then they're off the project. And unless you're continually calling, you're not financed. So that's what some of the things that the database is intended to help with, and it's going to be a tool available online so that the public and the community can see, is the city doing its job or not doing its job.
And so what if the community then sees that the city is not doing its job? What happens? What's the remedy? I mean, the expectation, the skeptical expectation, is that we'll discover the truth finally in a way that it can't be hidden or denied. And the truth is that there has been failure, consistent and pervasive.
I think one of the things that was a criticism that was identified in a report that was done about the contract compliance unit, and I think that report was done by the Humphrey, or through the Humphrey Institute, was that remedies, there were no remedies. I mean, or there was no follow through. There was no punishment for not meeting the goals. There was no way that a contractor was then told, you know, you have to pay a fine, or you're off, you know, you're off the list, or you're suspended for, you know, 90 days, 120 days, whatever it may be. There was no teeth to what we called the contract compliance. And so the thought is that not only have we been saying that the teeth need to start happening, and that's what I was referring to when I said I am starting to see, at least anecdotally, some of that happening when projects are being reviewed by civil rights. But now we're seeing more systematically what's the review, and what will then, I think, be a more public pressure to take appropriate remedial action when there is non-compliance.
Let me ask Roosevelt Gaines to sort of restate what you said earlier, because I think you said it powerfully and you said it clearly before the council member arrived. You talked about Roosevelt Gaines watching. You know, you and I talked about your history here of being a person connecting workers to job opportunity, and you talked about monitoring or seeing companies being awarded contract after contract after contract after contract, even though they failed and their failure was publicly known. So it's as if our government was rewarding them for keeping us out of the workforce rather than punishing them for denying opportunity or punishing them for their breaking the law or not meeting the standards set up by law. So say that again, if you would, because I think it's an important testimony.
Everybody's not in compliance right now. You know, is that what we're talking about, Al? And I was talking about the county, everybody. No one's in compliance. And it's really hard as the city of Minneapolis or MnDOT or any of those places to make an employer comply if they're not in compliance themselves. Here's an example. I'm meeting with one of the contractors. I pretty much know that this contractor haven't met their goals 5, 6, 7, 8 years. They're continuing to get a contract with the city of Minneapolis to do work. I'm sitting in a compliance meeting with this company.
Why are they getting the contract? Is it simply low bid, or is it simply quality of work? I mean, is there some compelling reason for the city to ignore the fact that they have failed to comply? and keep doing business with them?
I think just ignoring. I think they're just ignoring them, their compliance. I mean, this particular company says to me, well, I'm going to get some automatic trucks, and then when I get some automatic trucks, because right now all we have is standard transmissions, and then when we get some automatic trucks, this is the owner, then we're going to hire some black guys. I'm saying, wait a minute.
Black guys can't drive a
We
standard
can't
shift.
drive a standard transmission. I was shifting gears on my dad's lap before I could have reached the gas pedal.
Right.
But it's all about making folks comply. There's got to be some penalty, and I agree with the councilperson that, I've seen some changes in some behaviors of some attitudes at the Civil Rights Department, and I know that they're screwing the screws on tight on some contractors to make them comply because they haven't been in compliance. And in fact, I was just on the phone with them this morning. Anytime I see someone or see something that's not happened where they don't have, I put in a call to either Michael or someone down at the Civil Rights Department that I'm in contact with. But it's all about forcing. There's got to be a penalty. It's either you do the right thing and hire people from this community, or you don't get contracts with the city or the county or those agencies. I mean, that's the ultimate test for the city council and the people who are in charge of making folks comply.
Council member, can that happen? Can that happen like that? What is it that will either encourage or prevent the city council from saying either you meet the goals or you don't get the contract?
I guess I will just speak from my own perspective that I think that there is, for good reason, sort of a difference in what the policymakers do and what the staff does. The policymakers shouldn't get too involved in sort of politicizing, a process. But, once you get to a certain stage, then all the information needs to be able to get to the policymaker. And I guess that's what I'm saying, is that at the appropriate stage, sometimes I feel like I don't get all the information, okay? I know that you may have some very particular examples in mind right now, and I may just not know what they are, to be quite honest. And I don't say that to say that, I've got my head stuck in the sand, but that sometimes there's work done on the staff level and we don't see the detail of that report. And what I think will change by having this reporting mechanism, it'll be much easier for me or other council members or the mayor's office to say, we've heard there's a concern. I want to see the report on this, and I want to see the extent of the concern. I want to see the report of, how many violations there have been, and see if what is being recommended by staff as the penalty meets with what we have said is the will of the policymakers to kind of stand by what we say are our priorities. It's our job to set the priorities and say that we're going to comply with them. And then it's also our job to see that we get the right information at the right time. It's not me doing the job of the staff person and politicizing that process, but making sure I get the right information at the right time and I set the policy direction and stand by it.
I'm Al McFarlane. You're listening to Conversations with Al McFarlane. We'll take a break for music and come back and talk more with Councilmember Elizabeth Glidden and with my colleague Roosevelt Gaines. Councilmember, I want to ask you what's going on in 8th Ward. Let's talk about all the wonderful things you're doing and you see unfolding in your community in South Minneapolis. Stay tuned.